Howdy and welcome back to the Ineligibles podcast. My name is Will Stone at Will Stone CFB. You can follow me on X. You can subscribe to this podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify at the Ineligibles podcast. 31-9 win over Mississippi State at Kyle Field in the blackout. Big win, 5-0. Everyone's a big win. And this is one of those games where you get frustrated and it's, you know, I've I thought back to 2020 and how I felt then. As fun as that year was, it was good year. You went 9-1 in the COVID year with an Orange Bowl win. You finished fifth in the country, but there were some like, damn it, like I know we can play better than this, even though we're winning games. And the Auburn game, especially in 2020, when Bo Nix was just doing dumb stuff and scoring touchdowns, but we still got the win. And that feeling was how I felt this weekend in that first half when things are just, are not clicking on offense. In the defense, had the one drive where they got gashed a little bit, and then they shut it down the rest of the game. And I think, we probably said this about the last three games that old A&M teams, A&M teams of the past would lose would lose that game, like any of the last three, and maybe not all of them, but definitely A&M teams in the past would not have been sitting here at 5-0. It was either Notre Dame or it was Auburn or it was Mississippi State. One of those games, an older A&M team would have lost to a lesser experienced, less talented, lesser coached Notre Dame team. This one didn't. This one's 5-0, and they've played. It's funny how similar the last two games are because I think both those teams are good football teams. I think especially Mississippi State is, and you know, even playing our, you know, like our C game on offense, uh, you still had. Shoot, let me get back to this. Sorry, I've got Texas and Florida pulled up because I've got some of their stats I want to look at. Um, as that's who they played last weekend. Um, but you still doubled up your opponent in offense. Um, what was the total? Uh, 483 to 219 in terms of yards. Um, they rushed for 77 yards total after putting like 240 on Tennessee. Um, I did see that the running back that got hurt, that I'm such a big fan of, Bothwell, uh, went down late in that game, and you feared the worst as he got carted off. But it sounds like an ankle, and he won't be out the rest of the year. He will be back at some point, so um, that's great for him. I would have hated if he had gotten hurt. Like the game was out of hand already, and you know, you hate an injury at any point, but to have it in that moment would have really sucked. But he's going to be just fine. But um, this team just, it's funny how we've changed in 3 weeks, since Notre Dame, where uh, really the first three games of the year were like, oh, our defense isn't that good, but our offense is great. We're going to outscore everybody, we just light up the scoreboard. Well, in the last two games, the offense doesn't play, their best, and the defense has just been outstanding. I mean, I know you've seen it elsewhere, but 1 for 25 on third and fourth downs across two games in the SEC. I don't care if it's at home. I don't care if you're playing, teams that are last in the conference, which those two teams aren't, and they won't be. But that's damn impressive. And yeah, like I heard someone say, "Oh, well, they had him in third and long." Oh, well, how did that happen? They just decided to get into third and long every time. No, like we got sacks on first and second down. We got tackles for loss. We held them to short gains and forced them you know, into third and long. And there was a couple of I think maybe just one false start came at a big moment when they got down on the 1 yard line because if they don't get that, they're probably scoring and it's 7-0 in the first quarter. But they get the false start thanks to the 12th man. Incredible crowd, incredible atmosphere. Um, Kicking myself I didn't go, but I'll be there this weekend as they tussle with Florida in another night game at Kyle. But I did love watching it on TV. I felt I don't know how you can watch, like, I watch college football all day on Saturday, quad boxing all day, and I watched a dozen games probably. And I know it wasn't just a banner weekend, but I don't know how you can watch Kyle Field in a night game in that atmosphere and not say, yeah, it's a top three atmosphere in college football. Like, it's just incredible. And not even the best. I didn't say it's the best. It might be, but it's up there for sure. It's such an advantage. But man, and to not play your best, really haven't played our best yet. You have not played a complete clean football game on both sides of the ball yet this season. Yet you're 5-0. You're number five in the AP poll, which we didn't expect. At this point in the season. So yeah, it's exciting, but it's also frustrating, and I get the frustration. But it's hey, we're taking it game by game, and you may say, oh, that's gonna bite us, that's gonna hurt us one of these games. We're not gonna be able to do that against so and so. Maybe so. You may be right, but I'm not gonna sit here and just agonize over not playing perfect football because if you look around the country, no one is. Even Miami isn't playing perfect. Even Ohio State and Oregon are not playing perfect. No one is. But A&M is playing pretty damn well, and they got a good football team, and their fans should be happy about that. So it's a fun year, guys. It's one of them years where, you know, we talked in the off season. This could be a chance where, you know, you get A&M on an upswing, like you did in 2012, like you did in 2020, with just the level of experience and the talent, and obviously, I think maybe the biggest factor this year is the coaching staff, and the way they're playing football right now. But I guess real quick, we'll kind of go through this Mississippi State game. You know, 300 yards on the ground, 303 rushing against a conference opponent is really it's really impressive. And it wasn't just the backs. Like I thought, you know, I think there's so much that Colin Klein has in his arsenal. In his his war chest, his playbook, and because I thought we'd see a lot of jet sweeps, a lot of runs, running plays to the receivers, and I don't know if we saw any until this past weekend, and they they executed it well. I mean, getting the ball into the hands of number one and number seven as often as possible, it's a great plan, and it 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 makes the defense account for the whole field, east to west, north and south. Like, hey, you can't just, which is what frustrated me, you know, two big frustrations here, so I don't ramble. The goal line play calling early, the first two drive or the first two chances we got down there, the one they didn't get, like, you know, and it's one of those things where maybe it's on the quarterback, but also just as a coach say, hey, like they're gonna crash down on this, when you hand that ball up the middle, and if Reed pulls it on the fourth down, you got both tight ends with nobody covering them and no one covering the quarterback. Like he could have walked the football in if he had just pulled it, but at the least, like just lobbing it up to one of them, and they're going to catch it and score a touchdown. But and I get that that's a read you have to make, but maybe as the OC say, hey, Marcel, I would lean towards pulling it, and maybe that's not the way you coach. I'm not a coach. I'm just saying, but the the I don't know. It didn't feel very creative when we got down there. It was like, hey, we're gonna try to just ram it in without our hammer, without Le'Veon Moss on the field, who was a little bit dinged up. I didn't like that. I don't care about saving plays at this point. Hell, they ran the perfect fourth down play in the first game against UTSA. Like, pull that one back out, and like, the Mississippi State defense was able to just key in on us and just play us, in the phone booth because we just kept running up the middle, and yeah, I hated that. Even the second time we got down there, it was run up the middle, didn't work. Goal line fade to your 5'11" receiver on a 6'3" corner. He almost caught it anyway, but dumb decision. And then the touchdown, the throw over the middle, that was perfect. But and then later in the game when they had the read option that Marcel kept and walked into the end zone, shocker that happened. That like, oh, the defense is going to crash down when I act like I'm going to hand the ball off. Yeah, and then no one was out there to tackle him. The jet sweep to Craver, great blocking first and foremost, but another part where you know the defense was going left to right and was kind of out of sorts, and uh, speed kills. But yeah, I think that was number one. But number two, obviously, with Marcel's slow start, I think it was like I would encourage everyone if you if you really care about this stuff like I do, like we do, and you're listening to the show, so you probably do. On Texags, they do Stephen McGee, obviously former quarterback at A&M and former quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, backup quarterback. Does a film review every single week about the offense, and I always come away smarter for having watched it. But so I'll tell you to go watch it this week. But I think a lot of the stuff with Marcel, you know, in general, he's not like a inaccurate quarterback. It's not like he can't throw the football. Uh, you know, it's just very streaky. You know, it's like a shooter in basketball, or a streaky hitter in baseball, to where they're not Mr. Consistent, and they're not always going to bat 300 or shoot whatever percentage from the field. But once they get on one, they're going to really start heating up and get after it, which I think is how Marcel has been. Now, obviously, we would like that to improve. Like this team needs him to continue to develop and take another step, because we had guys wide open all night, and it comes down to timing. And on the two throws to Orstrom, the the interception was one, and the other was a ball that hit Thor in the face mask, which he probably should have caught. But on both throws, you saw him double clutch, and like he was already like starting to throw and then stopped, and then like went to go throw again. And that's how passes get intercepted when you're off schedule, and you're not throwing on time. But um, he takes a lot of hitches. It's like he doesn't always trust it. And then I think taking what they give you, like they were bailing out on the back end all night, but we kept insisting on throwing it deep. And you know even on the big play to Mario, uh, where he kind of like got knocked off his route, and then Reed scrambles outside and hits him for a big gain. I was screaming at the TV. I'm like, throw it to Owens. He's in the flat with nobody near him. Like, just get him the ball. And obviously that worked out, but still, I I don't want to oversimplify it, but like if Marcel just takes the checkdowns, we may win that game 42-3. And uh, so I don't know. This was the first time really all year that I felt that he didn't really play well, at least in the first half. Even against Auburn, I thought most of that stuff wasn't really on him. Although he actually played pretty well against Auburn, but Mississippi State, definitely was not his best in the first half. Picked it up in the second half, but we can't do that against the better teams. So defensively was lights out. I mean, that's a good Mississippi State offense. Now the offensive line's not good at all. They were down, maybe one of their best tackles, and that showed. We really got after him, which they they tried their best to just catch the snap and get it out quick. But we still got back there 4 or 5 times, and had pressure all night. So, but those are two great backs. Even when like Bothwell, he played the whole game till the very end of the game where he got hurt. But him and Booth are a hell of a duo. Thompson, the receiver from the kid from the Panhandle, blazing fast, got behind us on the one touchdown. But you know, in the as bad as we played in the fourth quarter or third quarter, whatever it was, it's 28-3. It's it's a beat down in the second half and against a quality SEC opponent. So defensively, I think the tempo got us, but they tightened it up. They really shut him out the rest of the game, with the exception of the long pass on that drive. But yeah, I mean they're playing well, and I think I may have had it reversed when I said coming into this 3 game home stretch of Auburn, Mississippi State, Florida. I thought it would be, I at first I would have ranked those teams in that order. I would have said Auburn's the best, and then Mississippi State, and then Florida, with as bad as Florida was playing. Now, obviously, it's just 1 game, but I think I would probably rank it the other way now. I think I would say that Florida's the best one, and Mississippi State second, Auburn third. Now, I don't. So my last thought on the Mississippi State game, we talked about the Vegas spread, and it opened up at 13 and a half, finished at 17 and a half. I'm like, man, that's high. And then you win by 21 or 22 points, you cover. Yeah, you could have won by more if you really tried, but yeah, you covered a 17 and a half point spread against a team that was 4-1, with the only loss being in overtime to Tennessee. So pretty good. They are 7.5 over Florida. I would take A&M to cover this week. I think this game is really simple formula. I think it really is. The first, what did Florida play? 3 games or 4 games to start the year? Four. They played a nobody the first week. A school that does not even exist. It was just don't even pay attention to that game. They went 0-3 after that. They went, lost to USF, lost to LSU, lost to Miami. You know, Turnover machine is what Lagway was. He threw 5 picks against LSU, one for a pick six. They only scored 10 points. They moved. I mean, they really didn't move the ball at all against Miami. They had like 150 yards of offense with like 60 yards passing against Miami. Just bad, bad football. But the whole time, everyone's like, "Hey, if Lagway's hurt and the receivers aren't healthy, like, just run the football. Like, your team is good at that. Why don't you do it?" And against Texas, they finally did it, and they gave Jaden Ball 27 carries, and it wasn't, super explosive. I mean, he got 107 on 27 carries, so not a great like yard per carry number from him, but it was effective. I think he got it 8 times on the first drive, and they were just grinding out yards against Texas, which I think, you know, a lot of moving parts here. I think that Texas defense is probably worse than we thought, and Florida isn't as bad on offense as they were the first of the year. But I don't think that like Texas sucks on defense and Florida's amazing on offense now, just because they scored 29, against Texas at home. Um, I think a lot of that was big plays. Well, not a lot of it, but obviously the play to the freshman receiver where the corner falls down and there's nobody on him. He walks in for, not walks in, but like trucks a guy in the end zone for a touchdown. Um, Now that kid's good. Dallas Wilson, he was a 5-star kid. Had not played at all this season until last weekend. Obviously had a very big game. 6 catches, 111 through the air, 2 touchdowns. Um, Really promising young player. Texas did not have Malik Muhammad in that game, which is by far their best corner. Um, we have 2 corners that can really, really cover. And really the whole secondary has done a terrific job of just locking down receivers the past couple weeks. So against pretty good receiver rooms, better than what Florida has, to be honest, with Thompson and Evans, and then obviously Coleman and Singleton, and all their guys at Auburn. But so yeah, what I think the formula is simple. Like, they're going to come out and try to run the football. Like, uh, they've got Ball, who's a big physical back. They got a big offensive line that's very veteran, just like A&M's, and very good at run blocking. Um, Lagway is not healthy. He's playing better for sure than he was, but I think that's probably due to you know taking some of the stress off him with the run game. But the throws he made last weekend, like that's more of what we thought coming in that he might be. Now, still had a pick, was just 21 for 28, through the air. A lot of that was yak, and not to take away from him, but I think that an underrated part of this A&M defense, because we're not just this defense is not just full of first round picks like Ohio State's is. They're just really really sound. Like they're really talented, and maybe not at an elite level, but they play really really they play hard and they play sound and they fly to the football and they tackle. I think Mississippi State just three missed tackles all game, which it's got to be a low since Elko got here, at least against a Power Five team. So this like we're not going to give up the cheap yards like some other teams might. So, but to me, and I'm sure Elko has a plan for this, but I would really go all out to stop the run game because that's what they're going to do. And I don't know why it took them 5 games to realize, hey, this is what we're best at. Let's do more of it, And but they did against Texas and it worked out, and they got a big win. But I think it is that simple. Yeah, I heard a crazy stat. I feel like Lagway, he's not. I mean, he's just a true sophomore, but he played a lot last year. And LSU this year in week 3 was his first SEC road game of his career. That was his first one. And obviously he had 5 picks, did not play great. And, not saying he's going to replicate that, but this is, it's a tough place to play. It wouldn't, I think if you put it at point 0.5 interceptions for Lagway, I would take the over, even though we haven't had a ton of them forced by the defense. I think I would expect to see some this weekend. Great question here from my father-in-law, Mr. Brian Graham. How can Elko stop all the penalties? It was funny watching the post game because someone asked Elko about if he tore up the team at halftime and just ripped into him. He's like, no, it wasn't that at all. Like, it was very calm, just saying, hey, like, we got to focus, got to be better. And then you hear Mario Craver, and he was like, "Yeah, Elko lit us up at halftime about the penalties." I bet it's probably closer to what Craver was saying there. But and I think it improved from week to week. But man, I'll tell you, I was pissed off on that first drive. You get a hold on the return, you get a hold on the first play of the game, or our first offensive play of the game, and then you get a freaking 12 men in the backfield. Like, come on, like get a grip. And now the one hold on the like not the first punt return, but one of the other KC punt returns where he got it down, great. Like I think maybe into the red zone even. That was a BS penalty on Jordan Shaw for not holding at all. I mean, just great block. Yeah, that was dumb. And I think some of them are dumb, but it's got to be better. And I think we saw, one thing I didn't mention is, on the offensive line, they've been moving guys around, really just the same couple guys. Like they'll rotate in Coley at center, and then move Mark Naboo to right guard, and give Armaje a break, who typically starts there. But there was a false start when Naboo was the center, and I think they benched him. He got benched. He never came back in. They kept Coley on the rest of the game, and he finished the game out at center, and he played well. He played very well actually. And then we finally got to see the combination of Ruben Father at left tackle and Trey Zune at center, only for a handful of plays, but they looked great doing it. I think Trey looked really good at center. Fathery hasn't missed a beat through injuries, so I really do wonder if that, maybe coming out of the next bye week, in a couple weeks, like is that something that they turn to more full time, or just kind of keep playing with it? But a lot of different things and different kind of looks they can give on the offensive line. But man, like what a great spot they're in with that line, and the depth they have. But offensively against Florida, I think you know, this the Texas game is a little bit of fool's gold. They have not rushed the passer very well at all this season, at all. They were last in the country, or they're at least last in the conference, maybe bottom of the country in sacks. They had like three coming into the game. They doubled their pressures in that game. From the first five games, out of their pressures, they got that against Texas, which I bet half those came against the left guard spot because Texas does not have a left guard. And it was like they all got beat like at different times. Like, you know, it's a rebuilt unit for Texas, and I think you know it really showed this past weekend the attrition they've had there with all the guys that left and that are in the NFL now. When you play together for 3 seasons and you're really really good, and then you lose that's almost impossible to replace. And they really didn't go after any portal guys. And then you're like, okay, we got some guys that have been in the program for a while that we trust and believe in, and they they've got to try something else at left guard because the two they played are not going to get it done. And I think one of them had a zero point 0 blocking grade, pass blocking grade per PFF, which is, I mean, that's you can't do worse than zero point 0. So yeah, I don't think, and to top all that off, of all the teams in the SEC this year, offensive line wise, that game by Texas, they allowed pressure on 60% of Arch's dropbacks, which is in Sark's offense is almost impossible. So I track that stat every single year, and Texas is almost always in the 20s, the mid 20s, because of how they play offense, and it's just like there's so much motion and quick passes, and you know there's usually somebody wide open on every single play, and there's you don't even have time to get pressure on them. Well, for whatever reason, that's they're not executing very well, and when Arch had to sit back in the pocket, and even sometimes it wasn't even him sitting back in the pocket. It was just they got beat off the snap. But 60% of the dropbacks they had pressure, and I forget how many sacks. I mean, I think I've got it right here, but I think six. Box score: 6 sacks and 7 TFLs. So and they had no run game. Speaking of Texas, their running backs. Quintravian Wisner, 8 carries for 11 yards, 1.4 average. Receiver had 2 carries for 4 yards, and Christian Clark had 1 carry for no yards. Arch 15 for 37. That's not good, and not being able to run against Ohio State is understandable, but when Florida is just shutting you down entirely on the ground, and then I mean really like they couldn't even, I mean 8 carries from your starting running back, and 9 total, like that's you know they didn't even, I guess they kind of got down early, but man, that's rough. But there again, like I don't think that Florida has just like they have a good defense. Like I don't want to diminish them. Probably on the level of Auburn, to be honest. Although I think Auburn is probably a little bit better on the edges with Crawford and Keldrick Falk. Crawford is making himself some money this year. He's going to be discussed in April or in whatever month the draft is in now, in April, as a draft pick, because he's having a great year. In Florida, like they're still without their best guy, Caleb Banks. Caleb Banks is talked about as a first round draft pick potentially. Preseason all conference, hell of a player. Has not, I think he played one game this year. Has not been good, but so I'm trying to pull up their report. They got a bunch of guys banged up, and it's kind of been that way all year. Talk about the running back Jaden Ball, who had a great game, but they don't have much behind him, and the guy they had behind him is out this coming week. They let me see. So Jaden Ball had 27 carries for 107. Duke Clark is a true freshman, had 9 for 38 yards. Duke Clark is out this week, as is Traylon Webb, who was another one of their top or like their reserve backs. Jacoby Jackson is a running back who's questionable. I think he's been out. He may return this weekend. But when you look at who's out for sure, like two running backs that both play. L.J. McCray, probably one of their most talented edge rushers, and then Caleb Banks is probably their best player on their team, and he's been out pretty much the whole year. Questionable. I don't know how much Devin Manuel plays for them. I know he played. I think he started for them last year, but they're pretty good at offensive tackle without him. But Aiden Mizell I believe he played last week. Yeah, he caught 4 balls last week, but he's questionable. That's the thing. Like Dallas Wilson and Vernell Brown are both true freshmen. Now, obviously, you know Dallas Wilson was he 6'3", 220? 6'3", 213. Like he's a physical like beast, but I don't think that this is a good matchup for them. Sorry, I'm just kind of all over the place here, but it's a very interesting game because I think they're a quality team, but I think the win against Texas is probably a little bit of smoke and mirrors. And like obviously they played at home, in the swamp, great atmosphere, all that good stuff. And they're a good team. They're a team where if we play poorly, they can beat us for sure. But I at least expect the defense to continue to play the way they've been playing, and I expect the offense to iron some kinks out and come out a little bit faster. Also, maybe the biggest mismatch in this game is Mike Elko against Billy Napier. Billy Napier's a bad football coach. I don't care about. I don't care that he beat Texas last week. I don't care if he'd beaten Ohio State last week. He's a bad coach. They still want him fired. They may fire him after this weekend if they lose. He has never. So I was just on before I got on here with a Florida content guy, and he said Billy Napier has never beaten a team on the road that finished the season with a winning record. While he's been at Florida, like every team they've been beat on the road, which is only like 3 or 4 teams, they all finished with with a losing record. So I told him, I'm like, man, if y'all beat us, then we might lose, if we lose this one. But no, I mean, he almost threw it away at the end of the game against Texas when the I think a lineman lost his helmet, and instead of just putting someone else in and just just run the ball and keep running the clock out, he called a timeout and stopped the clock and like gave it Texas like 20 extra seconds at the end of that game, and they could have lost. They definitely could have lost. And it's you know it's there's so many things I can't even get into them, but that is a mismatch. Like our coaches against their coaches, give me ours, every day of the week. So I feel good about it. Yeah, I'm excited for it. I'll be there with my lovely wife, which shout out to her. It's her birthday yesterday. Happy birthday, babe. Love you very much. Very excited to go to this night game with her. It's gonna be a good time. One question here from JT Wood before we switch to some national topics. Speaking of portal impact, Jordan Shaw paying dividends for the first time. Look at us forcing turnovers. Man, so awesome. Yeah, I agree. Which people talk about turnovers, and my take generally is that it's mostly random. Like everyone's like, oh, we got to go and force turnovers this game. I'm like, well, yeah, that's every game. You want to force turnovers, but we haven't really done it a lot this year. We have like 3 or 4. Not very many, but we're playing great defense. Like, I mean, as long as the offense protects the ball, like we should be in a good spot every game, which they typically have done pretty well. But with Jordan Shaw, I mean, I think he was a guy I was really excited about coming in, and I'm like, man, uh, if Chappelle's not ready, come back from injury, which obviously he was ready, but if he wasn't, I like Jordan Shaw. I watched some of the tape at Washington, and he did a great job against Zachariah Branch at USC, who's now at Georgia and is one of their top guys, who's very talented. And I think he's sticky in coverage. I think he's got good speed. He tackles well. Um, I think Chappelle got dinged. I think Elko mentioned that. He's not on the report. Which, speaking of the report, as we've mentioned it a couple times, um, only one player is out this week. That is Jared Kerr, the safety, and then questionable is Scooby Williams, linebacker, which probably lead towards him not playing. But I mean, I have no insight. Maybe he will. Maybe he won't. Um, but that means Bryce Anderson is back. I don't. I wonder if I kind of feel like they'll ease him back in, or maybe keep Ratcliffe and Brooks in there for the majority of the snaps. I think Brooks played pretty well last week. I think he showed some in coverage. I think he really showed, obviously, in the run game and on blitzes. Yeah, Elko loves the safety blitz. He ran it with Damani Richardson when he was here. Brooks is a perfect guy for it. He does it very well. So, um, and I can't leave out. It's hard to say much about the defense that hadn't been said because they're playing so well. But um, Cassius Howell, 3 more sacks, 7 on the year. Will likely be the first player for A&M to hit double digits since 2017. That was 8 years ago. For Landis Durham had 10.5 in a shitty year where we we, we should have missed a bowl game with how bad that team was. Um, we've had some good pass rushers, not anybody great, and obviously not the production that Cassius has had through 3 games or through 5 games. Um, but he had 3 sacks, 6 pressures. Was the defensive lineman of the week in the SEC. Damian Sanford, co-defensive player of the week in the SEC. 9 tackles, an interception, a TFL, a sack. Um, Played his tail off, and what a revelation he's been filling in for Scooby. I think 27 has found his way onto the field and has forced the coaches and will force the coaches to keep him on the field for the rest of the year. So defense is coming together. I think the offense can keep improving, and uh, there's opportunities there, but it comes down to your quarterback. You got to settle in, and be on time with your passes and decisions, and you can be a great football team. So I like him this weekend. I like him to cover, and yeah, just keep stacking wins. And I know it's easy, and I do it too, to think about the playoffs or the SEC championship or getting a bye week and blah 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 blah. We're ranked number 5 in the poll. Like, how can we move up? I don't care about any of that. Like, I do, but I don't. I'll care when it gets here. But as of right now, just keep winning. And like, you look in this schedule that looks so tough in August, doesn't look that bad. Um, Game by game, I would pick A&M against any opponent they have left to win in a single game. Am I saying they're going to go 12-0? No, they probably won't go 12-0. That's really damn hard to do. But when you look at each one individually, you're thinking, man, and depending on the next couple of weeks, they'll probably be favored in almost every game going forward. The road games, are a little bit tougher because, they factor in home field advantage. Those are going to be tighter spreads. Um, but I think as the season goes on, I think some of the early season, you know, numbers that play into the power ratings are starting to wear off. And, I think the truth about who these teams are is coming out as you see A&M is slowly making their way up the SEC or the S&P plus, sorry, the SP plus that Bill Connolly of ESPN puts out because they were 20th last week, and I'm like, we're better than that. And I think some teams just run up the score so much in some of the early games that they get overinflated. Indiana. But yeah, it doesn't matter at all. What matters is this team is competent and they're well coached and they're good. And a lot of teams can't say that right now. And there's, you know, every team left has a at least one glaring weakness or another. And I don't know that A&M really has that. And not to say they won't falter or they won't slip up, but it looks good. Here's my thing: get to the playoff. That's all I care about. If you win, if you make the SEC championship game, that's great. If you win it, better. I'll be thrilled. But as long as you just get to the playoffs in any form or fashion, at 10-2, most likely, that's where my expectation is. I'm a happy camper. That's taking the next step. That's taking advantage of where you're at right now. Like, you have to notice, and I know Elko does, that things have aligned very well for A&M, and all you gotta do is go out there and take it. So go out there and take it. But I'll take a short break here for a second, catch my breath a little bit, and we'll talk about some national stuff. Very interesting stuff around the conference and the country. All right, we got 9 listeners right now. Appreciate you guys. Sorry some of you guys came in and I was just sitting here on silent drinking tea, but we're back. We're looking at, you know, kind of an underrated weekend last week. I think people look down on this past weekend and be like, oh, there's no good games. There's, blah blah blah. This sucks. And look, man, it's college football season. Every weekend is great. They're all good. But man, let's start with which it's been beat to death. Like, that's the downside of doing Wednesday shows. But Penn State, Penn State and Texas, both top 10 teams, both losing to, or sorry, both top 10 preseason number one and number two per the AP poll. Both have 2 losses. Both are unranked as of today because they lost to unranked teams. Teams with losing records. Teams like UCLA. UCLA had not led for a single second of game time this season. They have been blown out every game. They are terrible. They fired their coach. They changed play callers on Tuesday afternoon at 5 o'clock. And they come out there and they score 42 points on Penn State and beat them with like 7 fans in attendance. And it was beautiful. And they carry Neuheisel off the field. His dad is in the studio going nuts. It was beautiful. And not that I hate Penn State, but there's something about them that, you know, I think they're a good team. They're not great, and they weren't great. They really haven't been great under James Franklin, really at all. Even last year, they were just like, they were good, but they weren't great at all. They can't score. They have not figured out offense or how to use receivers. I know before this year that'd be pot calling the kettle black, but we got some now. We're using them, so I can say that. But they beat up on bad teams, man. Like, look at any Big Ten schedule and compare it to ours or Texas or LSU or anybody else in this conference. It's shameful. You get to play Minnesota and Maryland and UCLA and Rutgers, and you know who cares? Like, that's great. You beat up on all these crappy unranked teams, but and against ranked teams, Franklin has a terrible record. I mean, against top 10 teams, he's beaten one ever. And I don't know. It was very satisfying to see them lose because we all would have said after last week that they were going to win, probably go 10-2 and sneak their way, backdoor their way into the freaking playoffs again. And they don't deserve it. And this loss erases any of that. Like even if they go, unless they go and just blow out Ohio State, which ain't going to happen, they're done and they're not getting in. And that makes me very happy. Also, I know I got some listeners very, very close personally to me that listen to this show that like Texas. And I do a good job of not just bashing them uh, or raining on their parade or reveling in their demise on this show. But I have to admit that it's week 7 and their playoff hopes have a fork in them. And honestly, for the first time, like I kind of disassociate with them sometimes. Like psychologically, it's what I have to do. But I in my head, I just like when I map out the schedule, I just put it as a loss. Even though like it doesn't matter how I feel about it, good or bad. I just say, just assume a loss there, and then look at everything else. After last weekend, I'm not doing that because like I thought they were still a team that was going to have a elite defense, and then eventually figure some things out on offense. But man, that's not the case. Like the defense is vulnerable. They do have some injuries, which that happens, but it's happening to them in spots where they can't afford it. Especially at cornerback, not quarterback, and then running back as well. Like the two teams that I would have been the most scared of, LSU and Texas, they can't run the football at all. I mean, they just can't do it. They're probably bottom in the country, outside the top 100 in rushing, and that just doesn't strike any fear into what I think this team is, this A&M team is. Now, a lot can change. I'm not making any, bold proclamations that we're going to go into Baton Rouge and go into Austin and just beat the crap out of those teams because, you know, they're still talented. They got good players. They're going to be 4-quarter battles, but it made me happy. That's all I'm saying. I was happy to see them, not be as as great as they were the last 2 years, and come back down to earth a little bit. But I digress. I thought that I thought Vanderbilt acquitted itself well. They had every chance to be in this game. They had two very untimely turnovers. One was a fumble, like inside the 10-yard line of Alabama, and it was pretty close. I mean, like I know that Bama ended up covering with a late touchdown, but I thought Vandy early on in this game and even into the third quarter was really, you know, moving the ball well. They held Bama to field goals a lot of the time, but I think Vanderbilt's still alive. I would not write them off at all. I think Bama is good. I think they're very good even, but you know, biggest game that I'm intrigued by this weekend is them at Missouri. Because I really got no feel for either one of them. Like I think they're both solid. Uh, I think they both could be really really good. But if one of them is a fraud, we're gonna find out on Saturday because and maybe it's Missouri. Maybe Missouri has just been beating up on really mediocre teams like Kansas uh, and South Carolina and UMass and Louisiana and whoever else they played. But their Power Four wins are not really impressive teams. That's in Columbia. We'll see how they handle that. Because like I feel better about A&M playing LSU or Texas. I don't know about Missouri. Like they got a great running game. They got great receivers. The quarterback has looked really good. The defensive line for them has played really really well. It's on the road up there, so Yeah, I'm intrigued by that one. Absolutely. Sorry, let me get to Brian. Can can the Sooner defense carry them if Mateer is still out? They say Mateer's going to play. Now, I'm not a doctor. I don't know how you get a broken hand and have surgery and throw a football 2 weeks after it, but if there's a way to do it, college football will find a way. And whatever kind of medicine or whatever else needs to be applied, I'm sure they'll find it. But from what I saw this past weekend, Texas does not have a shot of blocking Oklahoma. That they like Florida. Florida is not good at rushing the passer. They showed 5 games they weren't good at it, and then they dominated Texas rushing the passer. Oklahoma is one of the best teams in the country at getting after the quarterback, and it's not just it's their ends, it's their defensive tackles. Like that defensive line is loaded. The corners can be had. If if they give Arch like any kind of time, like he can probably you know that kept them in the game against Florida. Like they're on a down to down basis, Florida kicked their ass, but Texas had enough big plays to where you know that got them enough points through big play. It wasn't like they were putting together good drives. It was like, oh, like here's a big play here, a big play there, and they got some touchdowns. Also had a big turnover that gave them good field position. But OU's defense is a lot better than Florida's, and that that's going to be really really difficult you know for Texas, a team that doesn't run the ball very well. That's probably down, you know, without Baxter, without Wisner. I don't know who's the next back. Maybe Jarrett Gibson, but that's not a great recipe against a defense like OU. If I was a betting man and had money on the game, I would take Oklahoma to cover whatever the spread is, like OU money line, because Texas will struggle to score. Even if Mateer doesn't play, like it doesn't matter because yeah, the OUD line is that good. Also, while we're on Oklahoma, they may be the single most interesting team in this conference for the rest of this year. When you look at and like really outside of A&M, because or like outside of our world is what I mean. Because our world is really centered on, you know, obviously Florida this weekend, but then LSU, Missouri, Texas. That's our big ones, that we have left. No offense to Arkansas or South Carolina. Every game is hard. But everyone else that's in contention, I'm talking about Alabama. I'm talking about Ole Miss. I'm talking about LSU. They all play Oklahoma. They all do. I think maybe even Vanderbilt does too. No, they don't. They don't. But oh, Missouri, that's the other one. Someone is going to come out of this is going to come out of this mess at 10-2 or better. And I don't know if it's Ole Miss or Alabama. I mean, OU plays Tennessee. They only have one loss. Gosh, this stretch is brutal. And I think OU is good. Like, and if Mateer got healthy, like they could really do some damage. But Texas out, Texas, and then at South Carolina, and then Ole Miss at Tennessee, at Alabama, Missouri, LSU. That's 5 of the top 8 teams in the conference. I mean, damn, that's rough. But you know, I think it's interesting because those are the teams. If you want to talk about A&M getting to the SEC title game, it's going to be against one of these teams. Because I think if we went out, or I mean, not if we went out, but I don't think if we made it, it'd be against any of the other good teams that we play. Like maybe Missouri, but I really doubt it. So Ole Miss, Tennessee, Bama, Missouri. Sorry, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Alabama, Vanderbilt. Like those are very interesting teams, and Oklahoma could be there too. Like if they win, you know, can you go through that stretch with just one loss? I mean, that's that's really that's really stretching it. But maybe you lose or you lose at Alabama, but you beat Ole Miss and Tennessee and Missouri, and LSU can't score, so you beat them too. I don't know. If you're asking me to pick who makes the playoff out of this conference, I have no idea. But I'm. It feels like the chaos and the meat grinder is like on the other side, on the other side of the conference, and it's just like, yeah, like you guys have fun sorting all that out. We're gonna just keep doing what we're doing over here. But yeah, it's interesting for sure. But we'll wrap it up pretty quick. Let's see. Where's our schedule? I know I'm bouncing around a little bit. Let's look at this coming weekend. I think there's some. It's certified banger. There's a game on right now if you're interested. Missouri State at Middle Tennessee, and Liberty at UTEP. So if you're not aware, this tonight started that stretch of was it 41 straight days of football on every single night. So every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Obviously NFLS Monday, Sunday, and Thursday. But every night we'll have a football game, either NFL or college, until Thanksgiving. So that's fun. This coming week, man, Friday night, block off your calendars because South Florida is going up to Denton to take on the undefeated North Texas Mean Green. The winner of this, I think, has the inside track at making the playoff. Because I think whoever wins this, let me see, North Texas. I don't think they play Memphis. They do not. So if they can get by them, UTSA, Charlotte, Navy, UAB, Rice, Temple. They made it this far. Why not? USF is still really good. They could, it may come down to them in Memphis because I think Memphis and USF are more talented than North Texas is. But they got a good quarterback, man. It's gonna. I'm being serious. You should watch this game. It's gonna be great. 6:30 Friday on ESPN2. Big playoff implications there. Ohio State at Illinois. Ohio State will probably win that handily. I know Illinois is a good team. They're still ranked. This is when some of those Big Ten teams can rack up some losses. Bama at Missouri, we covered that. Pitt at Florida State. I don't know. Florida State. I would watch out for the Pitt Panthers after making a quarterback change. True freshman played very, very well last week as they smoked Boston College. Obviously, Red River we discussed, but then at the same time on CBS at 2:30, Indiana number 7 at number 3 Oregon. I would take Oregon. I don't. I know we're all high on Oregon right now because they beat Penn State, which I don't want to just chalk it up and say like, oh, like Penn State lost to UCLA, they suck. That was a tough win. That was a good win for Oregon. I don't really know how good they are. I don't know how good Indiana is. This may be the 2 best quarterbacks in next year's draft, which is interesting if you're into that kind of thing. Really intrigued. That's going to be a great one. Arkansas at Tennessee. That is the Bobby Petrino Arkansas team. He's had the reins for 2 weeks. Bye week last week. This is his first game as the interim in Knoxville. We'll see what they can do against the Vols. Obviously, Florida at A&M. Georgia Auburn. Someone explained to me why this betting line is 3.5 points. Georgia 3.5 is what they're getting on the road at Auburn. I mean, I get it's a night game, it's a rivalry, but is Auburn good? I mean, that's what Vegas thinks. I mean, maybe they are. I don't know what Georgia, you know, they're not near what they've been in the past. So I don't want any part of that. I would not bet that at all. Um, but yeah, if Auburn wins, and given that A&M wins, if A&M and Auburn both win on Saturday, uh, that'll make us look really good because I named all those other teams earlier, but Georgia, they're still alive, you know. But they got to go to Auburn. They got to play Texas here in a few weeks, or actually, I think it's closer to the end of the year. Um, they, sorry, Georgia's schedule is not really. Oh yeah, here we go. Mississippi State, or sorry, no, sorry, Ole Miss is the big one. That's next weekend. Um, man, some good games coming up. I mean, it's so much fun. I love when it gets into, you know, the beginning's always fun just to see what everyone's, kind of about. But getting into, where where the stakes are getting higher and everyone's vying for positioning and trying to make the playoff. Um, it's fun. So uh, still anyone's. I mean, it's so wide open this year. I mean, it's as good as Ohio State is. There's no one that's dominant. There's no one that should be the odds-on favorite. Last year's Ohio State team would whoop this one. I'd bet money on that. And they may still win it all this year. I don't know, but if there were a year for it to get really silly, this is that year. Uh, watch out for Tech, which we all are. I think Tech is good. They're a good football team. Um, watch out for them next Saturday when they go to Tempe to play Arizona State. They also play BYU, um, who has looked good as of late. But yeah, it's gonna do it for us today. It's a good weekend, man. If you're in College Station going to the game, come holler at me. Um, if you are going, yell loud and take a 12th man towel and give them hell. It's gonna be fun. If you're not going, enjoy just a great weekend of college football. And we will be back here next week, Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central Time, to break it all down. Appreciate you guys as always. My name is Will Stone at Will Stone CFB. Subscribe to us, the Ineligibles podcast. Thank you so much. We love you. We'll see you next week.